What is the fastest way a room of happy people turns sour that you've witnessed? Story 1. When I was a kid, there were about 6 or 8 families in our area who were a good group of friends. Regular holidays together, kids all close friends too, and in the same classes at school. The backstory was that one of the families kept noticing money going missing from a drawer in the master bedroom. They had an older son who was getting the blame, but was denying it. Fast forward a few weeks, and it's their younger kid's birthday, and everyone is at their house. Usual script was the kids' party would be late afternoon, then in the evening the kids would end up playing games in some bedroom as the adults had a few drinks. Kids were happy because we got to stay up late with all our friends, parents got to have a few guilt-free drinks. This night was going normal until we were all shuffled out and home earlier than usual. We got the full story the next day. Once the kids were out of the way, the owners of the house had turned on their TV and pressed play on a video. On screen, there was CCTV of the bedroom where the money had been going missing. Clearly, in the video, you could see the wife of one of the other couples sitting in that very room, going into the drawer and taking money. Apparently, they switched off the video and said, "What you saw is exactly what it looked like," and asked that couple to leave. Everyone else left shortly after. Story 2. A little backstory, I was about 6 or 7 at the time. My dad was addicted to coke and meth and was using both daily. He really hated me because I'm autistic and would constantly say hurtful things and hit me and stuff. Sometimes he would do mean things to me and then would go to play with my little brother and he would tell him to shun me as an extra punishment. I would sometimes go days without talking to my family members as ordered from my dad. Anyways, this was a day where he was being particularly awful in the car on our way to Best Buy. When we got there, he put my brother on his shoulders, told him to ignore me, and started picking out games for the PlayStation that I wasn't allowed to touch. We got to the line, and I was so tired of it, I yelled, "I'm tired of you being mean. I want you to stop hurting me and pretending to be nice. Stop hurting me." The whole store went silent. He tried to laugh it off, but he got a lot of side eyes, and one woman pulled her kid away from him. It was an awesome feeling, followed by a sinking feeling when the store remained quiet until I left with him. Story 3. This story took place my freshman year of high school. I was in an extremely small 5th period theater course with maybe about 10 or 15 other people in it. We were a very well-behaved class that acted more like a family than anything else. It was fun. However, one day we got a substitute teacher who I'll call D. D was old. She had short white hair, permanent scowl, and always wore a jacket that looked like a duster. That particular day, she was angry, and you could tell. She had a difficult time with the computer playing the movie, so she was yelling, fussing, and blaming her ignorance on us. In our class, we had several tech-savvy people, but she refused all help because we were too risky. Eventually, she got it to work, giving us the chance to ignore her. Around 10 minutes into the film, someone realized she hadn't said anything in a while, so they looked over and saw her eyes open, still, and unresponsive. They turned to the rest of the class, who were still focused on the movie, and alerted them. Everyone begins to freak out. People are taking flash pictures of her, waving, etc. Everything to get her to respond. Eventually she woke up, yelled at us, then went back to sleep with her eyes open once more. It was the freakiest situation ever. But the good news is that I never saw that sub working for my school again. Story 4. Didn't witness it personally, but heard about it in the aftermath. Back in 2006, an Army unit was being extended beyond its original 12-month deployment to Iraq. This was the first extension for the surge, and before it became common. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld traveled to the unit's home base to address the families of the soldiers and let them know why these soldiers weren't coming home, and the few that had made it home were having to turn around and go back. It wasn't a horribly happy crowd to start with, but they were willing to hear him out and be respectful. Apparently, he came in incredibly conceited about the whole situation and basically made a comment along the lines of, "They are soldiers and will do what they're told and like it." He was completely lacking in empathy or understanding and just expected everyone to accept and support the decision. This comment and demeanor immediately turned the crowd hostile, and the town hall was quickly canceled, and Rumsfeld had to be escorted out by his security detail. Story 5. In Portugal during the World Cup, get there early to find a street bar in the center with a big screen. Place is soon packed. England started really well, and everyone was singing and laughing. All of a sudden, the bar up the road erupts into massive cheers. Lots of people go out into the road to see. Apparently, someone just dropped an entire tray of drinks. We all laugh and go back to watching the game. 10 seconds later, England scored. Our bar erupts and we spill into the street. The bar up the road is deadly silent now. Weird. The game starts again and the bar up the road starts shouting again. Nothing in the game. What's going on? People look up the road again, can't quite work it out. Then a really bad tackle goes in and the penny finally drops. Our bar's TV is the only one using satellite and all the other bars have cable. Our feed is about 20 seconds behind everywhere else. Every exciting moment is audible about 20 seconds before we get to see it. Have never seen a bar empty so fast in all my life. Story 6. Bad snowstorm started about 4 a.m. a few years ago. My coworkers and I were texting each other, thinking no way would they make us come into our job today. We are all non-essential workers. We're all home waiting for the email to go out regarding whether or not our boss would give us the day off. Email finally goes out around 7:30 a.m., saying that we would have a shorter day, but everyone must show up for work by 9. So I layered up, cleaned off my car, shoveled out my parking spot, and headed to work on very precarious roads. I got to work on time and was greeted by my coworkers, who were all pretty happy just to not have gotten into an accident on the way over. All of the clients and meetings had been canceled, so there was a party-like atmosphere. Just as we were talking about playing charades, we got another email from the boss saying because road conditions were so bad, they were closing the agency after all, and everyone had to go home. This was 20 minutes after we had all gotten there. I've never seen 20-plus people all scream, "Are you freaking kidding me?" at the same time before. It was absurd, and everyone was angry. Story 7. I made the mistake of playing categories with my mother. She said, no foreign words. You have to use English words. Fine, fair enough. She then called out someone for using a foreign word. I can't remember, it's been 10 years. He took off the points. The next freaking round, she used 3 foreign words. I called her out on it, and she said it was no big deal, it's just a game. I argued that not only had she set the rule, but that she already called someone out for doing it. She called me a freaking butthole and left the room. The Thanksgiving family time was over, as pretty much everyone decided that was the time to leave. Total time from game start to end of the family time, 6 minutes. Story 8. The president of our company got completely plastered at our Christmas party. His speech started off funny because he was slurring hard and he was playing on it. Then he started talking about how he came from nothing and became something. Then he proceeded to tell us how if it wasn't for us working so hard and keeping our clients happy, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish building his mega mansion for him and his family. Nor would he have been able to afford his new Benz. Awkward muttering, followed by him directing us to drink up and enjoy because due to budget cuts, the future Christmas party bonus budget is canceled from here on out. Many of my coworkers relied on that bonus. No one was impressed. Except for one person, the rest of us quit within the first few months into the new year. Story 9. Back in high school, there was a classmate of mine whose father had passed away. The circumstances of his passing were tragic enough. He passed the same day my classmate was born. That all the school knew about it. One day we were messing around, nothing too rowdy, just cracking dumb jokes the way 15-year-old kids do, and our French teacher singled him out and said, "Your father would be so disappointed by your behavior." The class became completely quiet. My classmate froze, staring at the teacher in utter disbelief. Then every single one of us started shouting at the teacher. She even went to get the principal, which turned out to be counterproductive for her because we were the best class of our school, and the principal didn't doubt our word for a second. Story 10. The other day on Thanksgiving, my brother cracked a cold beer right as we were about to eat. Problem was, we were at my mom's, and she's super anti-alcohol, unless she wants some. Well, since my brother cracked one, my dad did too, and my mom turned into some poop from The Exorcist. Screaming, cursing my dad and brother, hurling personal insults, looking for keys so she could threaten to leave, the whole 9 yards. The worst part is I haven't been up to see them in months, so I had just driven 3+ hours with my kids and my husband, and we had just gotten there 30 minutes prior. I just sat there awkwardly staring at my husband while the brawl took place, until we could sneak out on the porch to hide. Then we all ate in silence. How was y'all's holiday? Story 11. My friend used to work for a company that has always promised our IT department a trip to Hawaii for working through a couple of rough years without pay raise, and on the flip side, we won't get any personnel cut. It was a verbal promise that once we're back to profitability, the IT department would get all expense-paid trips. Back around October 2015, they were gathered in the largest meeting room for a meeting with the president. There were snacks, drinks, pizza, etc. It was assumed that it was a celebration for a good year, and they'd get the promised trip. It was a massive layoff since IT has been outsourced. All credentials were locked during the meeting, and everyone was asked to leave the premises right after the meeting. Story 12. Dude decided to pop the question to his girlfriend at a work holiday party. She said no. Both parties began to cry inconsolably. All the guys in the room tried to cheer up the guy with their tales of woe. All the women in the room took the woman aside and did whatever the female version of the above was. Went from a fairly happy event to a complete disaster within minutes. Plus side, while all of this stuff was going down, no one was hitting the buffet, so I cleaned the frick up. Story 13. Was on a team, about 15 people, for a special project for a regional internet service provider. During the bi-weekly team meeting, the manager was super pumped about how far ahead of schedule we were due to some new processes we came up with. After about 20 minutes of attaboys, the manager concluded with telling us all we were being laid off in the same tone of voice she used for the whole meeting, issuing a bunch of praise. Most of us awkwardly laughed for a couple seconds, thinking she was joking. She was not. Story 14. We were discussing road safety with the headmaster. One of the pupils pointed out that there had been a car crash right in front of her just as she had been about to step out onto the road earlier that week, which had been really scary. The headmaster laughed and asked her what she was wearing and if it had been her fault. Absolute silence for 10 seconds as he squirmed and then mumbled, "I mean, were you wearing a ball gown?" Or as if that had been what he'd meant. Pathetic and excruciating. A 50-year-old man to a teenage girl. Story 50. One day at work, we had an hour-long meeting followed by a planned pizza party as a reward for meeting some safety goal. They'd been telling us all week not to worry about food because they were getting pizza. Well, after the meeting, we were sitting around waiting for the pizza to get there when our boss comes in and tells us there was a failure of communication and no one actually ordered the pizza. If you want to see 50 factory workers go from excited to murder ready in less than a second, that's what you tell them. Story 16. Camp. 150 kids headed to an ice skating rink. Everyone was laughing, cheering, having fun. Sitting on school buses for 2 hours, the place is closed. Instant chaos, screaming, general unhappiness. Took us back the next day, but still the angriest I've ever been. 150 kids. Story 17. Was in a sales meeting at a car dealership I used to work with. Sales manager is an alcoholic, functioning, but still an alcoholic. New salesman has to make a delivery of a car he sold a few days prior, and the sales manager tells him he'll follow him in his car and give him a lift back. To which the new salesman says, "You sure you're okay to drive?" Everyone went silent. Story 18. This is more of a mild story, but still very uncomfortable. It was at work during a break. A whole bunch of us were outside smoking. One guy asks my coworker if he has any kids, and says that he likes to dress up as Santa for the young ones. So my coworker tells him, "I have a daughter that just turned 20. And he replied with, "Well, she can definitely come sit on my lap." The silence after that sentence was so painful. Everyone ended up going back inside after that. It was super awkward. Story 19. I wasn't there, but when the Metallica concert in New Delhi was canceled, 30,000 fans were already at the venue, super excited and waiting for 3+ hours for the concert to begin. India is not exactly a hot destination for big musicians, so when Metallica came over for their first concert in India ever, people flew in from all over the country to attend. Metallica is pretty popular in India as well. I hear angry fans rushed the stage and broke equipment after the cancellation was announced. Story 20. Not exactly a room, but our plane landed home after my company spent a year in Iraq. Our company commander previously told us to tell our families that they shouldn't come out to the tarmac to welcome us back because it would be a freaking circus, and you'll just see them later anyway. Stepping off the plane, who are the first and only people we see? Our freaking commander's wife, 3 kids, parents, grandparents, brothers, and numerous cousins and friends. Story 21. I was on a Chicago to New York flight. We all got on the plane, but were delayed taking off due to a heavy storm going on. About 20 minutes in, everybody was still pretty calm until the pilot announced they're working on getting our baggage loaded because it's been sitting on the tarmac this entire time. The entire plane looks out and sees all our luggage just sitting there in the pouring rain, uncovered, and starts freaking out. Story 22. Family members waiting outside the baby ward. The husband comes out with a shocked expression, sits down and says, "The kid's not mine." Everyone becomes confused, but then are horrified. A day later, I could see the husband talking to who he presumed are his in-laws, begging him not to leave their daughter and saying they'll do something about the baby. Story 23. We were all laughing about this guy who wouldn't quit massaging my friend and literally stalking her in real life, coming to her job and stuff. We were making jokes about his Facebook profile when she accidentally clicked on messages and saw this Bible of a text, explaining how she was the reason that he hadn't ended his own life yet. Story 24. In grad school, we were gathered in a room to hear about how the last term of classes in the program was going to be cut due to a new law regarding educator requirements for the state. Everyone was stoked because it was going to save us like $5,000 to $8,000. Then they told us that due to state budget cuts, our total tuition was going to double. Story 25. We had to work on a holiday, but management didn't, so there was nobody to unlock the building. We waited outside from 7 a.m. until 7:45 and were told that if we didn't get in by 8, we could go home. 7:55, the manager shows up and lets us in. Click on one of the videos you see on the screen now, or a Karen will sue you.